Hello folks, Marc LoPresti here at the iconic Nasdaq Stock Exchange, and I am joined by ad tech entrepreneur, phenom, and game changer, Jeremy Barnett from RAD Intel. Jeremy, great to see you, sir.
Appreciate you having us out.
It's an absolute pleasure. So why don't we start with how RAD is changing the game for ad tech? I mean, the way that advertisers have placed ads historically is a very broken and very inefficient way of going about things. How has RAD changed that to make advertising more efficient and increase that return on ad spend?
Yeah, there's a consolidation in the ad tech space. IPG and Omnicom merged. I think that's probably the most relevant example, but the bottom line is guess less, win more. Brands want to guess less. In other words, they want to know who their customer is and what their customer responds best to, and what the content and context of that content needs to be in order to elicit some sort of outcome. They want to mobilize their customers to take action. And the agencies that typically service the brands, they want to win more. So it's a hyper-competitive environment. You've got the big three agencies, and then you've got a lot of these boutique agencies that are out there that are also vying to win this really hard to win business, which is these Fortune 1000, Fortune 500, and even Fortune 100 brands. So our technology helps brands understand their customers, understand the motivations, the topics, categories, and interests that motivate their customer to take action. And equally important is not just understanding what to do, but also understanding what not to do.
So is it really, to simplify for the audience, is it really about using AI and cutting edge technology to understand what will be a successful campaign before you spend the money to run it?
That's part of it, and if you think about content creation, it's really done in three pillars. The first pillar is understanding the audience segment that's connected or correlated to the campaign objective. So it's
what resonates with your audience.
Yeah, what's the messaging that needs to be put in front of that audience? What are the real world, real-time interests this audience cares most about today as it relates to your company and the objective your company has? And this can mean a lot of different things. The second pillar is who's the personality. You can say who's the influencer. You can also say who's the celebrity, who's the content creator, but who's the basically voice box that's going to go amplify that message to your audience once you understand what message you're putting out to your audience. So that's the second pillar. And then the third pillar is what that content should feel like, what it should be like, what channel should it be distributed on. Should it be a short form video? Should it be a long form video? So all of these three things are what any professional marketing practitioner has to think about and go through when they're creating content.
And the old way of doing it was trying, creating it, see what works, then pivot, then change. Very inefficient, very expensive. RAD Intel is using AI and predictive analytics to help the decision makers understand that before the money is spent. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Yeah, and we always say RAD, remove all doubt. The old way is typically peppered with a lot of bias. So if you think about the agency world, lots of smart folks work at a lot of these really big and small and medium-sized agencies across the world. They look at data, they look at information, they look at analytics, and then they make decisions based off of this information they're looking at that guide the decision making. These decisions are both on the creative strategy side and also who is that influencer, who's the personality that's going to be chosen to promote whatever it is they're promoting to their audience. The inherent problem with that is there's bias at every part of the content creation process, which kind of guides those decisions. And instead of using bias, a real talented marketing practitioner can use AI-informed recommendations in the form of content and creative intelligence that's using all of the different languages of the internet, the collective internet, data from Reddit, data from TikTok, data from X.
Sentiment data, for example.
Sentiment data, share of voice data. And all of this information is used to understand the real world, real-time categories, topics, and interests the customers you want to attract will respond to in order to elicit the best possible outcome.
And all of that translates at the end of the day into more bang for their advertising buck.
That's right. That's right. At the end of the day, it's and you know, you could say return on ad spend, ROI, and these definitions are really defined by the advertiser. But the idea is, if you're going to put that money to work, you want to be able to put it to work and make certain that the thing that you're doing is the best version of that thing that it could be. And
avoid potential disasters like the Bud Light campaigns famously, where that was completely misguided.
Yeah, my wife always tells me you don't get a cookie for driving to the supermarket and not getting in an accident, but a big part of what we do is helping brands divert messaging disasters, which can have a massive negative impact on the market cap.
So let's talk about the influencer component for a moment. That has, everybody knows, even the casual observer, that the influencer, as was known in the old Mad Men days of the celebrity endorser, has become such a critical component of effective advertising, of connecting with that audience, with that target customer or demographic. How does RAD Intel use your technological superpowers to dial in that influencer to the brand and the campaign?
So we talked about the content pillars a second ago. So the first content pillar is understanding your audience segment and the topics, categories, and interests that motivate that audience segment to take action.
What they care about.
What they care about, that's right. So now we know what that part of the campaign should be. It's really the creative strategy. So now that the base creative strategy is correct, what our AI does is it looks at the historical content performance of a base of influence across all of the different major social platforms, and we're looking at that historical content performance patterns to understand when they post about the certain topics, categories, and interests that we've identified over here, there's an outlier of positivity when they post about that stuff. So what we're doing is we're looking at this organic information of historical content performance patterns to match influencers to the audience segments that we already know are going to be mobilized to take action.
And again, to maximize that return on that investment in the advertising and the impact of that advertising in terms of sales and revenue, right?
That's 100% correct.
So it sounds like your customer segment breaks down in two categories, if I'm getting this right. One is agencies.
Yes.
And that is an industry that I think is ripe for disruption and for a little bit of technological innovation, particularly as it relates to artificial intelligence. And secondarily, the brands themselves. Do I have that right?
That's right.
Tell us how you sort of appeal to and get the messaging to those two separate components of your users, your market.
So, well, first of all, having two different customers, it all starts with being able to break through at the brand direct level. So it kind of goes back to if you build it, they will come.
Right.
So one of the hardest things to do as an incumbent technology or even an incumbent agency or incumbent technology that's used by agencies is breakthrough. So you get your first couple of opportunities, and the first thing is like simple old school, when you get the opportunities, you can't strike out.
Right.
So one of our clients, Hasbro, for example, we did 5 proof of concepts before they gave us a portfolio brand and an annual commitment. This proof of concept, which now is a recurring annual contract across a portfolio of across our portfolio of their companies,
and brands within their conglomerate.
Well, you know, it's Transformers, it's G.I. Joe, it's Monopoly, it's all these different things. But the case in point is this serves as a social proof point to other Fortune 1000s across other verticals. So right now we're scaling into fashion. We're already in gaming, entertainment with MGM. So all of these things sort of act as proof points to other companies that are typically more adverse to trying the new kid on the block. So the first thing is just kind of that old school thinking of when you get the opportunity, whatever it is you're doing has to work. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's been a change and shift at these brands. The brands are now smarter. They have internal marketing teams. They're looking at the bloated fees that these agencies are charging them, and they're thinking, how can I maximize the dollars that we're putting at market? So transparency and cost is really important. Aside from transparency and cost is collapsing the time frame needed in order to service a customer. That's really important. And then above and beyond that is when you have really smart people that are a part of these marketing teams that make decisions, they've seen every pitch. They've gotten every single deck from every agency around.
Sure.
They've used Facebook, they've used Insta, they used TikTok, they've used Snap, they've used all the channels. So you really actually have to have something special that's differentiated and works. So AI, yes, we have an artificial intelligence, but we didn't just come up with this, hey, let's add AI into the RAD Intel tool stack because it's now trendy. The technology itself has over 14 years of research and development in it. It's our AI. And we had to basically prove that by not just having the AI, but prove that by getting market and product adoption to the brands that are using it.
Sticking with the agencies for a moment, they are themselves under pressure from their customers from these brands, and you mentioned some of the big ones. To do better, to have more successful campaigns, to get their ad dollars stretched more, and you guys help enable them to be better advisors and better agencies to the brands. Let's talk for a minute now about the brands themselves. And you guys, let's be honest, some of the names, you went through it very humbly, but some of the names you mentioned, Hasbro, MGM, some of the big box, these are some of the biggest Fortune 1000s out there that have not just portfolios of companies, but portfolios of brands with distinct customer segments and things like that. How do you approach a challenge with like a Hasbro with that level of complexity within that one customer?
Well, Hasbro is a great use case. For starters, as you said, portfolio of brands, and within this portfolio of brands, there's all these different audience segments that are engaging within that portfolio of brands for different reasons. Somebody that likes the board game Monopoly is very different than somebody that likes G.I. Joe, for example.
Right.
Somebody who likes G.I. Joe is very different than somebody who likes Peppa Piggy, for example, right? So the idea of starting with creative intelligence first as our baseline, and that was really the core innovation of our technology.
What does that mean? Let me stop you. Creative intelligence. You've thrown that phrase around a lot during this interview so far. Tell the audience, what does that mean, simply?
Creative intelligence is quite simply, as a marketing practitioner, you are making decisions when you go into a program with approved budget of what the strategy creatively is going to be, what the messaging is going to be, what channels you're going to put it out on, what topic you want to cover. You're deciding the audience that you're going to target, what's the messaging you think they're going to care most about. And this can be for anything. It can be for a product launch. It can be for the purpose of selling more product in your e-com site. It can be to increase share of voice within your specific industry. So marketing as a world means a lot of different things to a lot of people. And that's the most important component. So when building our technology, the very first fundamental core value we have is ultimate flexibility within the technology. That's number one. Number two is we said, okay, since marketing means a lot of things to a lot of people, we have to keep the pen in the hand of the practitioner. And what that means is, as a marketing practitioner, when you're going in there, number one, you need to trust the information that's coming out of the technology. It needs to be easy, usable, number two. And number three is that information, when you use it, you need to be able to be rewarded for using it, which is ROI, or return on ad spend. So all of these three core fundamentals were associated with why we started with quote unquote creative intelligence. All creative intelligence means from our perspective is knowing what you're doing when you're doing it, or validating your existing strategy if you have an 8-figure Super Bowl commercial, for example, like what Skechers did a couple years back with Mr. T and Tony Romo for the Skechers slip-ons. You want to make certain that the people you're booking and the messaging you're putting out there to market is the right messaging to maximize those dollars that you're investing into it.
And in those examples, you only get one chance to make a first impression and spend that $8 million budget for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you only get one chance. That's right.
It's interesting to me, Jeremy, as an investor, one of the things that resonates is you're disrupting, but you're not disrupting and coming into your potential clients and saying, you don't need this team anymore. You don't need these people anymore. You're not looking to completely dislodge what is, and I use the Mad Men reference because the agency and the advertising world is very much ingrained in corporate culture in this country and globally. You're not saying you don't need those guys anymore, which is a harder pitch than saying we're going to help you do your job even better. We're going to make you look better to the brands, and for the brands, they're going to want to be using this technology both internally and with the agencies. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's right, Mark. And like, for example, Omnicom, one of our largest agency partners, the initial fear from any creative pro in the field is AI is taking my spot.
Right. And the robots are replacing the humans.
Yeah, and it's really a falsehood. It's garbage in, garbage out. If you're a very talented creative professional in digital marketing or in any field, using artificial intelligence is just going to make you even smarter, even faster, and even better at the things that you do. And it's going to give you more ideas to run with respect to the way you're thinking about or approaching a campaign. And the other part of it is now instead of using bias, you're using AI-informed information, unbiased information that you can trust, because we're essentially using the language of the internet.
Right.
All of these different data sources that we've identified as sources of truth to be able to look at to help you decide what you should, or sometimes even more importantly, what you shouldn't do.
Not. Right. Let's get into some numbers, and let's talk about
my favorite part.
What your favorite part? So let's talk about how this has translated into tangible results from those brands, from some of those Fortune 100 companies that have not only done a beta test with you, that have not only done an initial engagement, but have renewed. What have they seen on average in terms of a difference in their return on ad spend, the performance of their ads. How does RAD Intel track that performance from the customer side?
So there's two different ways to track it. There's a way to track it when it's a brand direct customer, which is going to be a lot of the metrics that we're familiar with. So it's increasing ROI by as much as 3.5 to 4x, depending on what those metrics are. Sometimes it's validating the concept. In other words, we're going to spend 8 figures. We need to make certain that the 8 figures is spent correct. Sometimes it's helping divert a mistake or a massive mistake. We've worked with a customer before that already had a fully baked out creative strategy. And once we did our analysis, we showed them in a very nice, respectful way, unbiased information with respect to their strategy was targeting the wrong customer.
Right.
So this, in some context, may have saved them a 7-figure marketing budget gone awry. And this is in the men's supplement space for a Vitality product. So there's the elements of that, and then there's the elements of like, hey, I'm spending $1. Instead of getting 2.5x over here, I'm now getting 3.5x over here because the messaging is better, the content is resonating better, and you know this as well as I know it. When you're a customer and you see something that you like from a brand that you want to engage with, if the messaging is correct, you're going to have a more likely scenario of engaging with that product on some sort of level. On the flip side of that, if it does something or the content makes you upset, the disengagement can increase as well. So these elements are always tracked against the baseline metrics that the client provides to us. So we define the elements of success with our customer ahead of time. So that's with brand direct. So we're seeing anywhere from like a 3 to 4x improvement over what they've done before in the past.
In terms of dollars spent and a return on those dollars, 3 to 4 times.
That's correct.
Improvement.
Yes.
In the ultimate outcome.
Yes.
That's remarkable. That makes it hard to say no.
It makes it hard to say no, and the other part about this is, so that's the brand side, which I think is interesting. The metrics that we look at on the agency side are also fascinating. So agencies are using our product to service the brands,
right.
But the metrics they're looking at is the differentiation of having our technology throughout the entire sales process for these big Fortune 100, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 opportunities that they're going after that are oftentimes 8-figure deals, right? So the differentiation associated with having our technology to be able to show the art of the possible to the brands they're looking to close is improving closing percentages by as much as 50 or 60% at the agency level.
Wow.
So this really kind of dovetails into why we have a new strategy called an AIBO strategy, which is we're looking to acquire small and medium-sized agencies, which I'm sure you're going to be asking me here about in a second, not to steal your thunder.
No, it's okay.
Yeah,
well, when we were at the New York Stock Exchange with John Najarian last year, you were just talking about the infancy of the AIBO strategy. It's a buyout strategy, right? So am I hearing, and if I'm breaking news here that you're not ready to talk about that, that's totally fine, but is there almost a digital agency extension of RAD Intel that's in the works with this AIBO strategy? Or am I not thinking about that the right way?
Well, I'll explain to you for starters. So when you talk about the agency world, the first thing is to understand that we're helping them win more business, right? The second thing is we're collapsing the time frame needed for the agencies to service the brands. So now what we're doing is we're able to help the agencies align their billing structure with the brand's interests. Brands are looking to do one of two things. They're looking to spend money more effectively, and they also want to make certain that the agencies aren't charging them these massive bloated fees. So our technology helps with that. The other thing is once you get a customer and the customer gets exposed to the different variables that are associated with our technology, the creative intelligence, the AI-informed influencer recommendations, and the AI-informed content optimization, what happens is an improved ROI with the brand. So now the brand becomes more loyal to the agency or service provider.
Right.
So what does that mean in the context of improved customer value, improved lifetime value? So all of these things fundamentally bolt into the P&L and balance sheet of the agency. Pretty powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
So what we thought of, we said, okay, what's the quickest way to scale? Well, the quickest way to scale is to find high performing teams, high quality practitioners, small to medium sized agencies, anywhere from $5 to $50 million a year. And we've developed an infrastructure where we're looking to acquire these companies using the proceeds from our fundraise. And we're going to be integrating our technology, and we're looking for companies that will have a material benefit as a direct result of the integration of our technology. And the whole core component here is our technology is doing all of these things at the agency level that create these revenue and P&L efficiencies.
And we could do an interview just on the AIBO strategy.
I believe we could.
And maybe we will.
Yes.
Maybe we will. We'll stay tuned for that. We might come back and do an interview just on this acquisition strategy because it's fascinating and it's game changing. But You talked about the fundraise. I want to get back to some numbers. The fundraise has been nothing short of remarkable, one of the more successful equity crowdfunding campaigns in recent years. 6,000 plus investors have invested in excess of, I think, $40 million. Do I have that right?
Right.
And counting?
Yeah.
And that's in addition, by the way, just a quick aside, you've got some institutional investors, some pretty relevant brand and engaged investors from that side.
That's right.
Who do you count in that cap stack as well from the institutional side?
Well, Adobe, I think, is probably on the technology side.
I think I heard of those guys. Yeah,
and,
okay.
It's something we're proud of. And Fidelity Ventures. And then on the investor side, I think the count now, I think we just eclipsed 7,000 investors in the last couple of weeks. So, and our community consists of, execs and insiders from Meta and Google and YouTube and Amazon. We've got accredited investors. We've also got just a lot of regular, everyday folks that are looking for the opportunity to get in early alongside some of the pros that they don't typically have the chance or opportunity to do so. So we're really proud of the community. A big part of our success in the equity crowdfunding space has enabled us to really build and do it in a way that's fast with our clients. One of the things we like to do is we like to innovate with our clients, and we like to bring them into the feature set, build out and roll out product strategy plan. And these things have been available to us because of the community support that we have. So it's been exciting, but none of this stuff happens without traction. So it's like a machine that all kind of feeds itself. The traction from the customers provides the revenue provides the investor confidence then kind of goes into full circle. The traction then provides shareholder increase, that provides even more investor confidence. So it's all kind of like this nice machine working with each other.
So let's come back to the numbers. Give me some numbers on traction, because if I'm not mistaken, from it was almost a year ago to the day that we did our first interview at the New York Stock Exchange with you. What's changed since then in terms of sales growth, revenue, things like that? Give some numbers to the audience to contextualize just how quickly RAD Intel has grown in the past year or even quarter over quarter. What can you share? Obviously, there's some restrictions from a regulatory perspective about offering projections. What can you tell us? Give us some numbers.
I can tell you we're just going into Q2 of 2025, and we've already more than doubled last year's sales contracts. So that's a big number. I can also tell you that Hasbro 10x'd last year's numbers with us, which is something we're really proud of. And Omnicom, our largest agency partner, is now in the second third of their second year with us. In other words, they just renewed for a second year with us. So these are all things that are making us feel really good about where we stand today.
So what does that represent in terms of year over year sales growth, top line?
Well, just right now, we're more than 2x, and we have the whole rest of the year to go.
Absolutely remarkable. And how about like from 23 to 24? What does that look like in terms of growth?
23 to 24, I believe, was 127%, and we
127%.
Yeah. And this year, if you just kind of do some back and math, I think we're going to eclipse that by quite a bit.
That's incredible. And a whole part of the reason for equity crowdfunding, from why the Jobs Act was created, was to make it possible for everyday investors to take advantage of the next unicorn, the next great IPO. There's no guarantees, folks, of course, that that's what might happen here. But we wouldn't be sitting here today talking with Jeremy at the Nasdaq if we didn't think he had a pretty good shot. And to that, and I know we talked about this, and if you can share it with the audience, it would be great, but you've taken some steps towards laying the groundwork for a liquidity event, let's say. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we recently reserved the ticker RADI, which is exciting, and I would like to say that you're the second person. You're not the first that I'm sharing this.
That's okay.
But you'll still have me out for dinner.
Yeah, right? I know, absolutely, absolutely.
Right. So yeah, we're taking steps there, and look, there's all sorts of different ways we think about creating liquidity for our shareholder base. At our heart, we're capitalists. We're doing this thing to have a legacy moment in all of our personal lives. A lot of times people say business isn't personal. I beg to differ. It's a very intimate moment for both my co-founder, myself, and the board members that are part of our organization. Our chairman is the former vice chair of Brookfield Asset Management.
Oh, wow.
And we have somebody else on our board who's acquired over 230 companies to help us with our M&A strategy. All of these things, humble bragging, we're proud of it, but all of these things simply mean that we've got the right team and infrastructure to get us to whatever that next thing is. None of this stuff matters unless we're building a company that's sustainable unless we're building a product that's world-class, and unless people in the commercial aspect of buying the product are willing to buy the product. People meaning agencies or brands. So if you talk about liquidity, yes, these things are really important, and certainly we're looking towards a meaningful exit for everybody involved, but none of these things happen unless we continue investing in the product and we continue making certain the customers that trust us with their ad dollars are having an excellent experience.
Yeah, all the fundamental elements of success, and that's why the family of individual investors is 7,000 and growing. But folks, if you want to be part of the next chapter of RAD Intel's incredible success story, the traction that Jeremy and his team have continued to demonstrate quarter over quarter and year over year, well, you've only got a limited amount of time to invest at the current valuation because that number's going up on May 29th. If you're as excited about this opportunity as we are, you need to waste no time and go to invest.radintel.ai. That's invest.radintel.ai. It's a very easy process, and you can join the growing list, the family of 7,000 plus investors that are part of the next exciting chapter in the success story of RAD Intel. Jeremy, it's always a pleasure to see you and a very exciting time in the growth of the company. Thank you for joining me today here at the Nasdaq.
Thanks, Mark.
It's a pleasure.
Take care of yourself.